Welcome to a journey beyond time, beyond the body, beyond everything you once believed you understood about life and the soul. What you're about to hear is not just a text, it is a key, an invocation, a call to the eternal depths of your consciousness. The Youth of the Soul, Etheric Secrets of the No-Time, a work inspired by the teachings of Max Heindel, is no ordinary text. It is a map to hidden dimensions, where the aging of the world dissolves before the eternal youth of the spirit. Within these words lives a wisdom forgotten by the many, but remembered by ancient souls. Here, you will uncover the mysteries of the etheric body, the true source of vitality, the bridge between the invisible and the eternal, and how to escape the prison of chronology to enter the sacred flow of no time. What does it mean that the soul never ages? How can the spirit regenerate beyond the flesh? Why do some beings radiate light, even amid the chaos of the world? This text will reveal that the source of youth is not found outside, but in the awakening of a silent truth that has lived within you since before birth. Prepare to feel, to remember, to transform. Every word is meant to touch a dormant chord in your being, and if something within you already hears the call, don't ignore it. Because you didn't come here to grow old with the world. You came to be reborn with the soul. Welcome to eternity. Dear reader and student of the invisible path, I greet you with the silent fervor of the disciple who, without having left the earth, has learned to look from the sky. I do not write these lines out of presumption of knowledge, but out of obedience to an inner voice that calls to reveal what until now has only been whispered in the veiled atriums of the inner temples. For years, I have humbly served as a laborer in the vineyard of the Rosicrucian wisdom, teaching about the invisible worlds, the evolution of the soul through rebirth, and the sublime mission of Christ as the spiritual heart of our solar system. However, there are truths that, by their more subtle nature, awaited the right moment to be spoken with the reverence they deserve. Today, by inspiration from the elder brothers, and for those who have already traveled a good portion of the initiatory path, I am allowed to speak about one of the deepest mysteries of the human body, the art of not aging. When the soul aligns with the solar and etheric laws of life, I do not speak here of profane recipes or remedies that seek to perpetuate the flesh through humanity. I do not speak of a real internal renewal that is spiritually justified. I speak of how the ancient initiates, both from solar Egypt and from the esoteric, Pythagorean, Rosicrucian, and Persian schools, learned to maintain the vitality of the body as a transparent instrument of the spirit, without subjecting it to the violent wear and tear caused by ignorance, misdirected desire, and crystallized thought. For aging, dear reader, is not a divine punishment nor a total natural consequence. It is the result of an internal conflict between the movement of the spirit and the inertia of form. It is a call to the lost harmony. Every wrinkle on the face, every fatigue in the step, every organ that declines in function, is a letter the soul writes to the disciple, reminding them that they have forgotten the solar fire that sustains them. The wise of old knew the mysteries of the ether of life and the luminous ether, those two invisible substances that, when flowing harmoniously through the vital body, keep the physical temple in constant renewal. These were not dead secrets locked in papyri, but living knowledge passed through the lips of initiates who had demonstrated purity, discipline, and fidelity. Those secrets have not been destroyed. They have been overflowed, waiting for mankind to abandon their worship of the idols of the material world and turn their gaze to the solar Christ who dwells in their hearts. Now, in this new cycle, as souls begin to remember their divine origin, these teachings must return to be given. In these pages, you will not find empty promises or sorcery disguised as science. You will find, if you read with an open heart and a disciplined soul, the closed geometry of spiritual rejuvenation, solar breathing, the etheric mantras, and the invisible exercises that transform worn energy into elevated vibration. The path is not easy, but it is certain. It is not short, but it is eternal. Those who follow it sincerely will see their bodies become light, their faces luminous, their blood singing, their sleep restorative, and their steps effortless. They will live longer, not to enjoy the flesh, but to more fully serve the divine plan. This work has been written for you, silent disciple, who meditates when others sleep, who studies when others celebrate, and who seeks in solitude the face of the One. If these words touch your heart, It is because you have already been called. May the rose blossom upon your cross, may your blood turn to light, and may the youth of the soul transform time into eternity. The Youth of the Soul, Etheric Secrets of No Time by Max Heindel. We have noticed that over 80% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by pressing the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1. Decrepitude as Heresy. Why the body ages only when the soul has forgotten it. The modern world, even within its religious spheres, has accepted without protest one of the greatest lies disguised as a natural law, the idea that aging is an unavoidable fatality, a curse written into the bones of man, and that the body must inevitably bend under the weight of the years like a dry branch overcome by winter. This belief, repeated without reflection, has become part of the unconscious creed of the masses. But I declare, with the authority granted by contact with the greater mysteries, that such belief is a spiritual heresy and not a divine truth. The physical body, as it is possessed by the current human being, is not designed for the progressive decay that occurs from the 4th or 5th decade of life. This decay is nothing but the visible reflection of an internal forgetting, a loss of contact with the solar soul, the higher self that maintains vitality like a river that never ceases, as long as the channel remains clear. To understand this, it is necessary to rise above appearances and observe the invisible architecture of the human body. As taught in our preparatory classes, the physical body is supported by a vital body composed of subtle ethers, which serve as intermediaries between spirit and matter. When the soul is active, conscious, and vibrant, these ethers flow with order and rhythm, maintaining each cell like a small lamp lit by the oil of the soul. But when man identifies solely with form, when he forgets his divine origin and lives for ephemeral gratification, the etheric flow begins to stagnate, and then the body ages, because the soul is no longer there in fullness. I have observed, with astonishment and sadness, how many 60-year-old men seem like ruined structures, while others, illuminated by devotion, wisdom, or selfless service, retain a freshness in their gaze, an elasticity in their bodies, and a clarity in their words that no apothecary's ointment can produce. The difference is not in their years, but in their connection to the etheric source of life. The heresy of decrepitude lies in believing that matter dominates spirit, when it is spirit that gives form and duration to matter. Those who surrender to resentment, judgment, fear, sensory attachment, or repetitive thoughts are unknowingly constructing the cage of their own withering, because crystallized thought, not illuminated by love or ideal, produces densification in the ethers, obstructing the passage of the regenerating currents of the spiritual sun. Remember this, noble reader. Time does not age man. Disconnection from the rhythmic flow of the universal soul does. Time is a melody. Those who learn to flow with it rejuvenate. Those who fear it or resist it solidify. This teaching has been preserved since ancient times. The Egyptian initiates knew how to breathe the ethers of the dawn, and their bodies, though hidden by humble tunics, were as flexible as the lotus. In the Chaldean temples, youth was prolonged through etheric exercises and solar meditation. The Druids knew the invisible calls to the spirits of the forest that restored lost vitality. The sages, those precursors of esoteric Christianity, lived to advanced ages without visible signs of old age, because each day they consecrated their bodies as a living altar of the spirit. Why have we lost this art? Why have we placed our faith in flesh, in external chemistry, in the doctors of dust, and forgotten that the true doctor of the body is the awakened soul harmonized with the rhythms of the cosmos? The Gospels give us a clue when Jesus of Nazareth, in his state of transfiguration, shone like the sun on the mount. It was not just a mystical phenomenon, it was a demonstration of what happens when the etheric body is fully irradiated by the higher self. That is our destiny. Christ came not only to redeem the soul, but also to rescue the body from the slow death of forgetfulness. Thus, faithful reader, aging is not a law but a sign of separation, and this work has been written to reunify what is separated, to show you how to restore the closed bond between your soul and your ethers, so that your body is not a prison but a living temple, where youth and wisdom embrace without contradiction. And now that this first veil has been lifted, in the next chapter, We will study the hidden design of the four ethers that compose your vital body and learn how to act upon them as one cares for a lamp so that its flame does not extinguish prematurely. The temple is in your hands. May it not wither through forgetfulness. Chapter 2. The Four Ethers Bridge Between Spirit and Flesh. Esoteric distinction between chemical ether, life ether, luminous ether, and reflector ether, how they interweave in the blood, the marrow, and the aura. When the Creator in his infinite wisdom conceived the human body, he did not imagine it as a mechanical machine subjected to blind wear and tear, but as a living harp that vibrates to the tune of the spheres, a delicate instrument that must be constantly tuned by the evolving soul. The medium through which the spirit works on matter is the vital body, composed not of flesh, bone, or even electricity, as we know it, but of ethers, subtle substances that penetrate and surround the physical body like a luminous cloud. These ethers, invisible to the common eye but perfectly observable to the trained clairvoyant, constitute the bridge between spirit and flesh. They are the substance of internal time, the living memory of each organ, the matrix of all growth, and the channels through which the spiritual solar energy penetrates and enlivens form. There are four types of ethers that make up this vital body, and each has its precise function, particular vibration, and place of action within the physical body and aura. Chemical ether. This is the densest of the four and is intimately linked to the basic functions of the body: digestion, assimilation, excretion, and cellular reproduction. It is the ether that keeps physical processes in balance and enables the constant rebuilding of tissues. Its vibration is directly influenced by the elements of the earth, minerals, plants, and liquids. It primarily manifests in the blood and digestive fluids. If this ether is unbalanced, the body loses its ability to regenerate and eliminate, leading to premature aging, toxin accumulation, and illness. Life ether. More subtle than the previous, this ether is the bearer of the vital force itself, responsible for growth, reproduction in its highest form, and the energy of cellular renewal. It is the ether that flows most intensely in children and in adults who retain the innocence of the soul. It accumulates especially in the spinal cord, the heart, and the sexual glands. Its vibration depends on the internal harmony of the soul. The purer the thought and the higher the emotion, the more orderly this ether flows. When obstructed, the body ages, not by years, but by a lack of renewing impulse. Luminous ether. This ether is the bearer of sensory consciousness and internal light. It allows for perception, creative imagination, and spiritual sensitivity. It is the vehicle through which the soul radiates beauty, art, compassion, and intuitive understanding. In great artists, seers, and mystics, this ether vibrates intensely in the aura, like a golden or bluish mist. Its field of action is in the sympathetic nervous system, the inner eye, and the emotional aura. It is here that the body becomes radiant, not by physical youth, but by the radiance of the transfigured soul. When this ether stagnates, the individual loses light in the eyes, the brilliance of the skin fades, and their presence becomes opaque. Reflector ether. The subtlest of the four, it is the bearer of subconscious memory, the projection of mental images, and the connection to higher planes of existence. It is in this ether that the actions, thoughts, and emotions are imprinted, which later form the foundation of karma. It is also through this ether that we can remember past lives or receive divine inspiration. This ether forms a thin layer on the periphery of the aura, like a polished mirror, reflecting both heaven and hell according to what we project from within. It links to the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and the higher cardiac center. A clean reflector allows the soul's youth, while a stained reflector repeats old programs of pain and decay. How they interweave in blood, marrow, and aura. These four ethers do not act separately but interweave like the threads of a sacred cloth. In the blood, the chemical and life ethers determine its vibration, temperature, and capacity to transport. In the spinal cord, the reserves of life ether are stored, and creative energy is transformed. In the aura, especially in the cranial and cardiac regions, the luminous and reflector ethers manifest as two wings of an invisible bird. When the soul is in harmony with itself, when there is no hatred, resentment, or self-abandonment, these ethers flow like four rivers watering the garden of the body. And then, though the years pass, the body does not wither but becomes a temple of radiance. But if thoughts become entangled in the past, If the soul forgets the higher ideal, if one lives for desire and not for light, the ethers crystallize, and the body becomes heavy, opaque, alien to the music of the spheres. To you, disciple of the path, this knowledge is given so that you know you are not condemned to decay but called to constant renewal. The ethers are your instruments, the soul your musician, the body your harp. Now that you know the strings in the next chapter, you will learn to activate the life ether, that invisible substance containing the vegetal secret of eternal spring. May your inner light never extinguish, and may your ether vibrate like the first morning. Chapter 3. The Ether and Silent Renewal, the Plant Principle in the Human Body, the Secret of the Eternal Children, Solar Foods, and Daily Transubstantiation. Among the 4 ethers that make up the vital body of man, one in particular lovingly holds the secret of silent rejuvenation, effortless growth, and vitality that does not wear out. This ether, although invisible to the material eye, is the sap of the soul, the bridge between spirit and matter. In its function of sustaining organic existence, it is called life, because everything that grows, blooms, renews, or heals does so thanks to it. When we contemplate spring in a forest, when we see a new leaf bud or a wound heal without human intervention, we are witnessing the pure action of ether, the plant principle in the human body. This ether, more present in the plant kingdom than in any other, is one where plants do not have desires, a conscious mind, or individualized will. They live in perfect harmony with cosmic rhythms, and for this reason their body is completely impregnated with the ether of life. When the human being enters into resonance with this same vibration through pure nourishment, elevated thought, and rhythmic breathing, they begin to absorb more of this ether into their own vital body. The body then ceases to be a vehicle driven by desire and starts to become a conscious plant that does not wilt as long as it remains under the light of the soul's sun. The human body, though more complex, still contains in its structure the memory of the plant. The glands, especially the endocrine ones, are like internal flowers that, if cared for, continue to secrete youth. The bone marrow, in its function of blood creation, is a field where ether constantly blooms as long as it is not obstructed by dense emotions, incompatible foods, or repetitive thoughts. The secret of the eternal children. Who has not marveled at the inexhaustible energy of a child, their breeze that seems to come from the center of the cosmos, their ability to play without fatigue, laugh without reason, and live in the present as if time had no claws? This is not merely a matter of physical youth. The truth is that the body of a child is saturated with ether. It has not yet been colonized by the gravity of crystallized thoughts or the tension of unfulfilled desires. The child lives in the present, breathes with their whole body, sleeps deeply, and surrenders with sincerity. Therefore, their vital body is in direct contact with the universal etheric current. The great initiates learn to preserve this state without abandoning spiritual maturity. They do not rejuvenate because they were physical children, but because they retained the soul in a state of conscious play, surrender without resistance, movement without attachment. This is true youth, not the absence of years, but the presence of the soul vibrating without contradiction in the body. Solar foods and daily transubstantiation. The physical body is an altar. What we introduce into it, whether through the mouth, skin, or senses, transforms internally into energy, vibration, and etheric substance. This daily transubstantiation, this constant miracle, occurs in all human beings, but not all do so consciously. Solar food, that is, food that holds the vibration of the spiritual sun, is that which has received its light without death or destruction. Fresh fruits, live vegetables, seeds full of promise. These elements not only nourish the body, but also leave vibratory traces that the vital body can absorb easily. Bread for the body is not enough. The soul needs food that has not been mutilated by the fire of desire or the greed of industry. Every dead food introduces crystallization into the ethers. Every living food, if blessed with consciousness, restores the flow of ether in the tissues. There is also a superior nourishment, that of harmonious thought, serene contemplation, deep prayer, and elevated art. These do not nourish the flesh, but nourish the vital body. Pure ideas, when chewed with love, have an effect on the body equal to or greater than the best of delicacies. When the soul learns to feed its ethers with harmony every day, then the miracle occurs. The body becomes an instrument without wear. The skin clears, the eyes regain their brightness, sleep becomes repair, not escape. The glands vibrate like living bells, and the entire body becomes a field always green under the solar rain of the spirit. In this chapter, we have contemplated the art of renewing the body from its vital substance. In the next, we will delve into the even higher mystery of luminous ether and discover how internal light can sustain the body without fatigue and keep the soul awake in every cell. Prepare, disciple, for the path leads not to the regeneration of the body, but to its luminous transfiguration. May the eternal sun illuminate your marrow, may your blood sing under the eternal dawn, and may the ether of life sustain you in every season. Chapter 4. The luminous ether, light that does not burn, energy that does not deplete. Among the most subtle secrets entrusted to me in the silent corridors of wisdom guarded by the elder brothers, there is one that burns without consuming, shines without scorching, and renews without tiring. I speak of the mystery of the luminous ether, that invisible substance that not only allows us to see the world, but reveals to us our own selves as living temples of the light of the Spirit. If the ether of life is the river that flows through our veins and sustains us in organic existence, the luminous ether is the inner light that organizes meaning, animates vision, and awakens the soul's consciousness. Without it, the body would become a sleeping mechanical apparatus without a soul. With it, the body becomes a shining instrument of perception, intuition, and living beauty. This ether, unlike the chemical or vital ether, is not tied to the flesh, but to the light that penetrates and surrounds the form. It is the subtle field where the soul imprints its intention before it manifests in acts. Through it flows creative thought, divine inspiration, and the living image of the higher self before it incarnates into words or gestures. The mystery of inner light. Many people seek light in lamps, in books, in the words of others, but the wise seek the light within themselves, not as a symbol, but as a vibratory reality. For within the human body, when it is in harmony with cosmic rhythms, there is a source of light that requires no combustion, no oil, nor physical fire. That light is the result of the purified luminous ether vibrating in unison with the soul. In the ancient mysteries of Heliopolis and in the hidden teachings of the Egyptian priesthood, we were taught that the human body possesses an internal sun, a center of radiant light situated between the heart and the larynx, which is activated when the soul has ceased internal contradiction. This light, which is perceived by advanced clairvoyants when they see radiant auras around saints, poets, and pure children, is not a metaphor. It is a vibratory condensation of the luminous ether that surrounds each cell like an invisible crown. When this ether is vibrating in harmony, the body does not tire with effort, nor does it dull with pain, for every action is sustained not by muscular force, but by the irradiation of the soul. Solar breathing and etheric absorption without depletion. To activate and maintain the luminous ether in its fullness, one of the oldest and most forgotten methods is conscious solar breathing. It is not about breathing hot air or looking at the sun with physical eyes, but about consciously absorbing the solar essence contained in the etheric atmosphere. Every morning, when the veil between worlds is thinner and the light has not yet been profaned by the noise of the day, at dawn, when the sun barely rises, the disciples should present themselves in silence, purity, and humility, standing or sitting with the back straight and the heart open. One inhales not only oxygen but the subtle fire contained in the solar ether, which is transmitted by the spirits of the air and the angels of light. This breathing, done in rhythm with pauses and devotion, charges the nervous system with subtle light, and over time transforms the physical body into a nearly transparent light-sensitive vehicle, free from the usual wear and tear of common life. The morning air contains, for a brief time, particles of virgin luminous ether that have not yet been absorbed by trees, animals, or humans. These particles, if captured in a state of prayer or contemplation, are assimilated by the solar plexus, the pineal gland, and the chest centers, where they become active internal light. This is why initiates begin their days before dawn, to silently gather the etheric substance that sustains their hidden work throughout the rest of the day. This process of absorption, when done without desire, anxiety, or selfishness, does not deplete the body, but beautifies it. The skin lights up from within, the voice becomes sweet, the gaze gains depth, and the soul can sustain prolonged acts without fatigue, for the energy no longer comes from the muscles, but from the well-directed luminous ether. Note on fatigue and interrupted light. Why do we tire if we have not made great physical effort, It is because we have interrupted the flow of luminous ether, either with dark thoughts, dense emotions, or judgments that darken the light of the soul. Every judgment freezes the ether, every resentment clouds it, and every greed diverts it. The body then cannot sustain itself and asks for rest, not because it lacks strength, but because the light has ceased to circulate within it. Therefore, the best way to keep the body in a vibrant state is to cultivate inner clarity. There is no need to run, sweat, or struggle. Simply live in light, think in light, speak in light, and the whole organism, from the marrow to the skin, responds like a flower opening to the dawn. Just as the ether of life sustains the structure, the luminous ether sustains the vibration. Whoever masters this principle will be able to undertake long days of service without fatigue, speak for hours without damaging their voice, and fast without weakness, for they will have learned to nourish themselves from the light that is neither bought, cultivated, nor stolen, the light of the soul connected to the inner sun. In the next chapter, we will delve into one of the most serious causes of physical deterioration, crystallization, that hidden process by which rigid thinking and repetitive emotions turn the body into stone, and youth is extended not by years, but by a lack of inner flexibility. May your breath carry the sun to every corner of your body, may your skin become a mirror of your light, and may your soul remain open to the eternal dawn. Chapter 5. Crystallization as death in motion. How hardened thought creates rubs, the body as a mirror of fixed ideas, the importance of unlearning. Just as water that ceases to flow becomes a swamp, the soul that stops renewing itself crystallizes, and with it, the body becomes a prison rather than a temple. This chapter speaks of a death that is neither sudden nor visible, but constant and silent. Death through crystallization, not only of the flesh, but also of thought, feeling, and the will that resists change. The disciple who wishes to prolong their youth should not view the passage of time as their enemy, but rather vigilantly watch the rigidity that time imposes on the unawakened mind. For every thought that repeats without review, every idea asserted arrogantly, every emotion that persists without transcending, leaves invisible traces in the vital body that, over time, become visible traces in the physical body. It is not the years that carve wrinkles into the face, but ideas that no longer evolve. Each wrinkle is a groove where an intense, unresolved emotion once was, or a thought that repeated with force, but without love. The furrowed brow reveals prolonged worry. The lines around the mouth indicate bitterness or judgment. The sagging of the face, abandonment of the soul. Just as hardened thought creates wrinkles, every thought has form, density, color, and rhythm. An elevated and dynamic thought creates an expansive vibration that keeps the etheric body in constant motion, generating renewal in the cells and organs. In contrast, a thought repeated with rigidity, especially when loaded with fear, doubt, or anger, generates crystallization in the ethers, blocking the light from passing through them. This crystallization first deposits in the chemical ether, impairing elimination processes, then penetrates the etheric body, halting cellular regeneration. Finally, it obstructs the luminous ether, darkening the gaze and stifling expression. The so-called expression lines are not expressions at all, but scars of fixed ideas the soul refused to release. The face, noble reader, is a mirror of the soul, and when the soul has ceased to dance, the face becomes dull. The body is a mirror of fixed ideas. The human body is not just a biological instrument, it is a living manuscript, where each organ, each curve, each muscular tension reveals the internal history of the one who inhabits it. The rigidity in the shoulders points to the invisible weight the soul refuses to let go of. The inflated abdomen signals emotional retention that has not been digested. The painful joints announce resistance to change, and the disturbed nervous system speaks of a mind at war with the rhythm of life. These conditions are not punishments but messages, signals from the soul sent through the body to awaken the disciple. The greatest enemy of youth, even more than impure food or constant sleeplessness, is the idea that has become an immovable, intransigent idol. An unrenewed thought is like a blocked river. After the first day, the water stagnates. After the first year, it begins to rot. The same happens with the internal life of a person who clings to beliefs that no longer nourish their spirit. The importance of unlearning. If the body rejuvenates with light and movement, The soul rejuvenates with conscious unlearning. It is not enough to acquire knowledge. It is necessary to regularly empty oneself of what no longer serves, what no longer resonates, what was useful in one stage but has become a burden in the next. Unlearning does not mean denying what has been learned, but letting go of form to preserve essence. It is like the tree that, every autumn, sheds its leaves to avoid dying in the winter. Similarly, the disciple must learn the art of letting go of ideas with gratitude, without attachment, allowing their mind to become a clear sky where the sun of the spirit can shine again. The soul that unlearns renews itself. The mind that frees itself from old conclusions becomes young. The body, upon receiving the vibratory signal of this internal flexibility, responds with agility, radiance, and lightness. That is why I say that old age begins in the mind before the body, and youth does too. The initiate who wishes to walk through the world with a body of light and an awakened soul must practice not only solar nutrition and closed breathing, but also the silent art of questioning oneself without violence, renouncing without pain, and unlearning without pride. When this happens, the body responds. The skin becomes clearer, movements become gentle, energy does not deplete, and the disciple walks among men with an invisible step, without bearing the weight of their years. In the next chapter, you will learn exercises for etheric dematerialization, practices that allow the body to become light and invisible to wear and tear, supported by energy flowing from higher planes, without physical effort, without emotional tension, and without mental exhaustion. Remember, what does not vibrate dies. What clings hardens. Only what flows remains. Chapter 6. Exercises of etheric dematerialization, practices of internal lombation, vibratory reversion, weightless rest. Up to this point, we have delved into the invisible mysteries of the vital body, the ethers, crystallization, and the power of internal light. But knowing is not enough. For the soul to truly govern the form, it must act upon it, and this requires discipline, silent practice, and daily contact with the subtle substance of life. This chapter is reserved for those who have understood the previous concepts, not only with the mind, but with the heart. It contains exercises that, when practiced consistently, allow the body to partially dematerialize, that is, to become more etheric, less dense, and less affected by the gravity of the external world. These are not physical practices in the common sense. They do not require strength or sweat, but attention, sensitivity, and vibratory purity. They should not be taken lightly. Only a serene and silent soul can act upon its vehicles without causing disorder. These exercises, orally transmitted by ancient initiates, have been translated here into accessible language, but their potency does not depend on the words, but on the sacred intention with which they are carried out. Internal lombation practices. Subtle expansion of the etheric body within the physical. The physical body does not limit the soul. It is the soul that, by identifying with its boundaries, contracts its presence. The goal of this exercise is to partially detach the etheric body from the physical one, expanding it from within without abandoning the earthly balance. Instructions. At dawn, sit in complete silence, keeping your back straight and eyes gently closed. Visualize your body as a hollow form, like a clay jar of subtle essence. Breathe deeply without effort. With each exhalation, feel your consciousness expand a millimeter outside the body, like a mist that lovingly surrounds it. Bring your attention to the center of your chest. From there, feel an internal impulse of vertical elongation, as if a thread of light was stretching you from the crown of your head upwards. Maintain this sensation for 7 minutes, then gently return to your center, as if you were picking up a thread. This exercise should not be practiced if you have been under dense emotions. You must be serene, purified, and in communion with the higher realms. With time, this subtle expansion strengthens the vital body, making it more flexible and reducing its dependence on the physical plane. Lightness will become natural. Your steps will be quieter, your body more upright, and your fatigue almost non-existent. Vibratory reversion, reprogramming physical impulses from the etheric plane. Every physical act has a vibratory trace. When repeated without awareness, that vibration becomes crystallized. The exercise of reversion seeks to undo this crystallization from its vibratory root. Instructions. Choose a gesture or automatic reaction that ages you, frowning, tightening the abdomen, clenching fists. Consciously reproduce that gesture in silence. Observe it without judgment. Then slowly reverse the gesture. If you were frowning, deliberately relax it. If you were tensing, loosen it. If you were shrinking, expand. During this reversal, visualize how the vibration that held that gesture dissolves like smoke before the light of the soul. Thank your body for showing you the tension, and finish with a deep breath. This exercise should be done once a day, with a different gesture each week. After a few months, the body will stop repeating unconscious actions, and instead, a new, flexible movement will arise without a past. Weightless rest. Temporary liberation from the gravitational anchor of the physical body. This is one of the highest and subtlest exercises. It allows the physical body to feel free from its weight, as if floating, although still in contact with the earth. It is a state of deep communion between the etheric body and the luminous ether. Instructions. Lie on a flat surface, preferably outdoors or in a consecrated space. Close your eyes, take 3 long, deep and slow breaths. Feel your body as if it was suspended in warm water without tension. Then imagine that this water transforms into golden light, supporting your body without touching it. As you inhale, imagine that an upward current flows through your body, from your feet to your head, lifting you from within. As you exhale, release all weight. With practice, you will feel that your body partially disappears from consciousness. This is not sleep. It is etheric rest without density, a prelude to conscious sleep. This rest regenerates the nervous system, clears the aura of accumulated tensions, and allows the soul to re-impregnate itself in its temple with new vibrations. These exercises should not be practiced with the expectation of immediate results. They are keys to a lost art that only open in the silent fidelity of the practitioner. They do not seek spectacle or physical feats, but the gentle dematerialization of the body, so that the spirit can dwell without resistance. True youth does not reside in the flesh, but in the vibration that animates it. And this vibration is restored when the body ceases to fight against the soul and learns to rest in it. In the next chapter, we will explore the golden rhythms, the secret moments of the day and night in which the body can be reprogrammed by the harmony of the cosmos, and in which time ceases to consume, beginning to sustain. May your body become increasingly more etheric, may your soul inhabit it with gentleness, and may the weight of the years transform into the lightness of the eternal. Chapter 7. Golden Rhythms. Time as an ally. Life is not an accident, nor is time a lifeless line that drags man toward decay. Everything in the universe vibrates with order, and this order is not only harmonic, it is sacred. Just as the stars follow a rhythm in their silent dances across the heavens, the soul of man also possesses invisible clocks that mark the auspicious moments for renewal, rest, prayer, and expansion. He who ignores these rhythms lives like a leaf in the wind, but he who learns to listen and dance with them transforms time into his servant and turns his body into a symphony of enduring youth. Nothing ages man more than the erroneous use of time. The soul does not tire from actions, but from performing them outside the right moment, without resonance with the higher rhythms that envelop it. There are hours when the body pleads for rest, and there are others when the very solar energy calls for noble action. The wise one does not impose his will on the day. He harmonizes with it, recognizing the hidden pulses that mark the entry of planetary forces into his blood, becoming a disciple of rhythm. Night, misunderstood by most, is not simply the absence of light. It is a temporary sanctuary where hidden hierarchies operate the restoration of the etheric body. But this restoration depends on a precise condition. The disciple must enter sleep within the rhythmic current that corresponds to him. It is not the same to sleep when the soul is dissonant as it is when it has been bathed in prayer. The moment of rest is an act of consecration. By sleeping in the rhythm of the cosmos, the body not only rests, but is impregnated with solar substance, reorganizing its fields, eliminating vibrational residues, and recovering spiritual memory. There are hours during the night when the planets pour influences onto the earth that can only be received by those who have prepared their inner vessel with purity. Saturn, with its purifying seriousness, visits the marrow. Venus, with its silent harmony, repairs the blood. Jupiter expands vitality, and the moon, if well understood, offers rest to the lower organs. But all of this occurs only if the soul sleeps with sacred intention in a body not profaned by excess or dispersion. Sleeping in the planetary rhythms is not simply about sleeping at a certain time, but offering the body as an altar for the hierarchies to operate their alchemy without obstruction. Similarly, during the day, there are moments when the cells open to the solar influence like flowers. Every sunrise is not an astronomical event, but a bursting forth of the spirit into matter. The initiate prepares before dawn, not by habit, but because he knows that the first rays contain the purest vibration, capable of activating the cells, restoring the luminous ether, and awakening higher consciousness. The sun at midday, on the other hand, radiates strength and power, excellent for decrees, service, or noble action. The afternoon, for its part, offers energy for introspection and preparation for descent into the inner world. The human body is a temple whose architecture is made not only of bones and nerves, but of rhythmic intervals, silences, and pauses where the soul breathes. Every organ has its hour. The heart strengthens at dawn, the lungs open with the morning song, the stomach responds to the warm sunlight of the morning. He who learns to eat, sleep, speak, and move according to the invisible clocks of the soul begins to notice that his body no longer ages at the same pace as others. His days are longer, his nights more restorative, not because he has altered time, but because he has aligned with true time, the one that flows in the subtle worlds, and that the sages of the East and West have revered in their sacred calendars. Youth is not preserved by effort, but by consciousness. The cell vibrates young when its inner owner holds it with a pure rhythm. When actions are repeated without consciousness, when one sleeps with impure thoughts, when one eats without respect for the life being absorbed, the rhythm is broken, and time no longer supports it. It wears away. Therefore, the disciple is not measured by his intellectual wisdom, but by the harmony with which he breathes, walks, sleeps, and serves. The invisible clocks of the soul are not found in bell towers, nor in the shadows cast by a cane on the sand. They are engraved in the rhythms of the heart, when it vibrates in peace, in the breath that turns into prayer, in the gesture made at its proper hour, in the silence that arrives when noise no longer serves. When one aligns with these rhythms, something wonderful happens. The body begins to illuminate, not as a sudden miracle, but as a progressive transfiguration. The skin becomes transparent to the light of the soul, the organs work without wear, and the face reflects a calm that no medicine can manufacture. If the reader has understood this chapter with their inner ear, they will know that eternal youth is not a gift granted to a few, but a universal melody that can be heard by anyone who learns to listen to it within themselves. Every hour of the day can be a step toward renewal, if walked in rhythm. Every night is an invisible mass, where the soul offers itself as flora before the cosmic altars. Thus, time is conquered, rhythm becomes alchemy, and old age is transcended. In the next chapter, we will enter even higher ground, the power of the word. The spoken and thought vibration as a regenerating substance. We will see how the words spoken by the soul, when aligned with inner truth, can rejuvenate the flesh, reorder the blood, and attract light to the most hidden tissues. He who has understood rhythm is prepared for sound, and he who governs his sound has begun to conquer death. Chapter 8. Words that rejuvenate vibration and internal sound, vibratory prayers, vocalization as medicine, the verb as an agent of the luminous ether. In the ancient sanctuaries, when the world was still young and language had not yet been corrupted by haste and banality, words were sacred acts. They were not spoken lightly because each syllable was understood as a vibration that shaped the subtle substance of the universe. The wise knew that speaking was real, and that every word spoken, especially if it arose from the heart, harmonized with the mind, penetrated the ethers, and shaped the invisible world of destiny. Today, when the disciple seeks to rejuvenate their body, they must understand that the word is a force, not just a symbol, and that their voice, if purified and guided with wisdom, can become a sonic medicine. This medicine does not merely alleviate but regenerates. Just as music can make us cry, heal, or elevate us, so too can words charge the vital body with new life, especially if they are imbued with high intention, pronounced with conscious rhythm, and sustained by an inner harmonious vibration. It is not so much the words themselves, but the state of the soul that pronounces them that determines their power. When the soul speaks from the higher self, without selfishness, without the desire for exhibition, without anxiety, the verb becomes a bridge between spirit and body. Words spoken in this way do not remain in the air. They enter the marrow, caress the glands, reorganize the blood, awaken the luminous ether, and this, in turn, acts as a balm upon each cell, erasing old tensions and restoring the form from its vibratory root. This is why the art of praying with vibration is so important, not just with devotion. Many pray with their mouths, but not with their souls. Others recite without presence, as though repeating dead formulas. But the disciple must learn to pray with their entire body, turning each word into a wave that emerges from the solar plexus and ascends to the larynx, crossing the heart like a silent fire. When this happens, prayer is no longer supplication. It is the emission of light, a call to the higher worlds, a music that orders the disorderly. Vibratory prayers are those that have been spoken for centuries by pure souls, leaving a vibratory imprint in the higher planes. When the disciple repeats them with reverence and consciousness, they align with this ancient vibration and become imbued with its virtue. The Lord's Prayer, for example, is not just a Christian prayer. It is a vibratory key that touches all the centers of the soul, and if recited with rhythm and concentration, it can unleash waves of light upon the etheric body. There are also sacred vocalizations, pure sounds that, beyond language, contain within themselves the geometry of creation. The vowels, when pronounced with high intention and in the silence of dawn, act as instruments that affirm, cleanse, and reorganize. The A clears the mind, the E elevates, the I harmonizes the solar center, the O connects with the deep, and the U connects with the profound. These are not superstitions, but ancient teachings tested in the healing temples. Vocalization as medicine does not require a stage, theatrical technique, or a perfect voice. It requires a waking soul, a body in contemplation, and purity of intention. The disciple can dedicate a few minutes each morning to emit a closed vowel, holding it with the exhalation, feeling it vibrate within the chest, forehead, or pelvis. That vibration does not disappear. It remains imprinted in the ethers and works for hours, tuning what is out of tune, relaxing the tense, and activating the dormant. But there is an even greater power reserved for the initiate, the silent verb. The unsaid word, created in the heart with such intensity that it emits a vibratory wave toward the body without needing to be spoken. This internal verb is the true language of the soul, and when it joins with sacred breathing and the creative image, it can produce invisible miracles in the physical body. It is through this means that great healers work, not with noise, but with ordered vibratory presence that radiates without the need for contact. Understand then, sister on the path, that the word you emit shapes your body, forms your days, accelerates or halts your aging. Every complaint, every judgment, every sarcasm, every lie deposits shadow in the luminous ether, and every word of love, gratitude, beauty, or forgiveness cleanses the internal substance, dissolves old tensions, and restores youth like rain upon dry earth. The wise soul does not remain silent out of shyness, but because it has understood that to speak is to create. And when it speaks, it does so with art, with rhythm, with peace, because it knows that the verb is the blood of the world, and by speaking well, it reorders the invisible worlds. The body, if frequently exposed to words vibrated with truth and harmony, rejuvenates without the need for artifices, not because the flesh becomes immediately youthful, but because the ethers are purified, and in doing so they guide the form back toward its lost equilibrium. Speak as if every word were a decree, a planting, a luminous geometry, and your body, over time, will become an echo of that music. The next step will be to understand that there are closed orbits in the physical body, and when they vibrate in harmony with these sounds, they open portals of deep regeneration. Among these, the endocrine glands, many of which are ignored, are actually doors between time and eternity, between wear and renewal. Chapter 9. The endocrine glands, cords of inner time, the secret work of the pituitary, pineal, and spleen in the youth of the soul. In the ancient temples of wisdom, before profane science attempted to strip the body of its sanctity, the internal glands were recognized as organs of the soul, not mere chemical factories. Each of them, like a hidden star in the flesh, possesses a rhythm, a vibrational key, and a sacred role in the spiritual economy of the human body. Among all, there are three that act as guardians of inner time, invisible regulators of youth, perception, and renewal: the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, and the etheric spleen. External medicine, when daring to measure these structures, hardly recognizes fragments of their function. It focuses on secretions, weights, and tissues, but fails to see the light within them and the intimate relationship they have with the higher worlds. The disciple, however, must learn to look beyond the material, for within these glands concentrate the gates of rhythm, memory, and vital balance. Without them, the flesh ages, and the soul falls asleep. The pituitary gland, located behind the center of the forehead, is the organ of the solar activity of the soul. Its subtle secretion not only influences the growth of the physical body, but also the ability to regenerate tissues, absorb the ether of life, and maintain the elasticity of internal functions. When this gland vibrates in harmony with the spiritual sun, meaning when the soul lives in nobility, order, and purpose, the body receives a golden influx of etheric energy that prevents cellular degradation. But when willpower bends, when the mind falls into habits of disharmony, the pituitary becomes clouded and begins to release erratic signals that confuse the vital body. The practice of elevated attention, inspiring reading, morning prayer, and contemplation of good stimulate this gland without overburdening it, allowing its internal radiation to act as an inner sun that keeps the body in a state of activity without fatigue. Many wise individuals from the East knew this and dedicated part of their day to open the frontal eye, which is nothing more than allowing the pituitary to receive direct light from the soul, like a temple aligned with the summit of the invisible mountain. Farther back, in the most secret chamber of the skull, rests the pineal gland, sometimes called the throne of the spirit. This gland is the organ of the luminous immobility of eternal memory and spiritual perception. In aged bodies, this gland calcifies and stops vibrating, but in the initiate who keeps alive their connection with the higher self, the pineal remains subtly vibrating, like a crystal bell that never stops ringing. The pineal does not act alone. It is the highest point of resonance between the body and the soul, but it requires a purified body, blood untainted by dense emotions, and a silent mind. When these conditions are met, the pineal begins to emit a frequency that, if measured, would reveal a symphony as exact as that of the cosmos. This frequency reorganizes the etheric fields, prevents them from crystallizing, and causes the physical body to receive orders of harmony instead of commands of deterioration. The pineal does not rejuvenate by itself, but it reorders the body from above, making the lower functions adjust to the rhythm of the soul. That is why those who live in truth, service, and contemplation rejuvenate, not because they wish to, but because they have aligned their house with the light that does not change with the years. And at the base of the etheric body, often ignored by those who only observe the visible, lies the etheric spleen, the true transformer of solar energies that reach the body through breath and living foods. The spleen, in its higher aspect, is an etheric organ, not a physical one, and its function is to absorb solar energy that floods the vital ether of the planet and distribute it to the vital body of man. When the etheric spleen is clean, active, and well-directed, the body receives renewing energy every day. This energy is organized by the pituitary and directed by the pineal. It is a closed triangle. The spleen gathers the force, the pituitary organizes it, and the pineal spiritualizes it. In this triangle resides the youth of the soul. Many of the great initiates who prolonged their lives without fatigue did so not because of pharmaceutical secrets or isolation, but because they lived in harmony with this axis of inner light, caring for their purity, their thoughts, their breath, and their surrender. And thus, even beyond the natural time, the body showed no signs of wear because it received daily orders from the soul, not from matter. Here then is the great lesson. Youth is not obtained, it is sustained from within. It is not imposed on the body, it is revealed when the body ceases to oppose its source. The endocrine glands, treated with respect, love, and discipline, are not biological parts. They are temples that respond to the daily worship of the soul that inhabits them. The disciple who learns to live with reverence, who sings instead of complaining, who breathes rhythmically instead of sighing, who looks with hope instead of judgment, is sending constant signals to these glands, instructing them to remain young because the soul that inhabits them refuses to die before its time. And thus the body responds, not because it is forced, but because it has been convinced by the silent light of the spirit that never ages. In the next chapter, we will talk about the invisible entities that collaborate with or interfere in this process, those subtle beings who care for, balance, or distort human vitality, depending on how the soul receives it. Chapter 10. Purity, Chastity, and the Return of the Elixia, how the transmuted creative energy becomes a regenerating nectar, Chastity not as deprivation, but as mastery of the alchemist. Every true alchemist knows that the secret of life is not found in the possession of external formulas or the mastery of material elements, but in the internal art of transmuting the densest into the subtlest, the instinctive into the spiritual, the passionate into the luminous. And among all the forces that the soul can redeem, none is as powerful, as dangerous, or as misunderstood as the creative energy that springs from the very roots of the physical body. This energy, called by some the seed, by others the generative fire, and by the wisest the hidden elixir, is not only a biological resource destined for procreation, but a condensed solar substance that the soul can use to rejuvenate the body, open the higher senses, and nourish its temple with eternal light. It is the oil of the wise virgins in the parable, the gold of the alchemists, the new wine that Christ spoke of when he said it is not poured into old wineskins. In the uninitiated man, this energy flows outward, driven by desire, dissipated in search of sensations, used as currency by a soul that has not yet learned to govern itself. In this state, every passionate act, although justified by the flesh, empties the ethereal vessels of light, exhausts the marrow, cools the blood, and leaves the body exposed to premature wear and tear. This is why many men, in their physical prime, already show signs of exhaustion, internal flaccidity and a dull gaze. They have given away their essence unconsciously, their fire without purpose. But when the soul awakens, when the disciple understands that he has not come to the world to be a slave to his instincts, but to govern them as a king of light, then the creative energy transforms into his greatest ally. It is no longer wasted, but contained, sublimated, directed upward like incense in a sacred temple. And then the miracle occurs. That very fire which once wore him down now regenerates him. Transmutation is not repression, nor fleeing, nor condemnation of the body. The alchemist does not destroy lead, he transforms it. Chastity, understood in its higher form, is not deprivation, but mastery. It is not the denial of the voice, but the transformation of the impulse. It is living with such inner intensity, with such a sense of purpose, that the generative energy rises through the spinal channel, unites with the heart, and crowns the mind with golden light. When this happens, the body is renewed from within, because it has received the lost nectar of the gods. This nectar, called ambrosia in certain schools, soma in others, and by us, the regenerating elixir, is the internal substance that arises when sexual energy is contained, elevated, and consecrated to the service of the soul. Its origin is not physical, although it is generated in the physical glands. It is an almost imperceptible etheric secretion that nourishes the higher centers of the vital body, strengthens the marrow, purifies the blood, and rejuvenates the face. There is no external ointment that matches its effect, because it does not merely cure, it transforms. Many great initiates have been described as eternally young, not by virtue of lineage or celestial intervention, but because they learned the art of preserving their inner fire without wasting it. They lived in spiritual marriage, in sacred union, or in creative celibacy, but in all cases, the energy that resided within them became light, word, healing presence, a gaze that penetrated souls. For the modern disciple, this teaching remains valid, even though the world around him preaches otherwise. True youth is not compatible with the dispersion of the generative fire. Every time the soul elevates it, it gains years of luminous life. Every time it is lost without awareness, it ages prematurely. Therefore, chastity is not a law of repression, but a condition of the greater art of rejuvenating from above. This practice is not achieved in one day, nor should it be imposed with violence. It requires loving discipline, understanding of its inner laws, purification of desire, and a clear vision of the ideal. But he who achieves it, even partially, discovers that the source of youth is not external, but in the loving mastery of his inner fire. The soul that masters its creative energy becomes the alchemist of itself, the sculptor of its bodily destiny. The body no longer ages by inertia. It follows the rhythm that the soul dictates, and in that rhythm, time ceases to be a line that wears down and becomes a circle that renews. Now that you have understood the art of governing your internal elixir, it will be revealed to you in the next chapter that you are not alone in this endeavor. There are invisible beings who accompany you, who care for your vital body, who collaborate or interfere in your vibration, subtle beings who enter your aura according to your vibration. They will be our next study companions. Chapter 11, The Invisible Friends of the Etheric Body, on the spirits of form, the devas of the body, and the angels who guard the blood. If man only knew how much he is not alone, how much he is assisted by beings he has never seen with his eyes, but who surround him from his first breath to his last exhalation, he would live with greater reverence, more gratitude, and less fear. Just as the builders of a cathedral cannot see the invisible architects who inspired its design, the human soul rarely perceives the subtle workers who support its body day after day. But the disciple, when he has purified his inner vision, begins to recognize that his existence is interwoven with presences that do not belong to the realm of man, but to the hierarchies of construction, healing, and protection that operate from the etheric planes. These invisible entities are not symbols or metaphors, but living intelligences that cooperate with the evolutionary plan, and their function is to help maintain the human form in harmony with the cosmic law. Not everyone can see them, but their effects are present in every silent healing, in every wound that heals without intervention, in every organ that performs its function without the man commanding it. Among them, the first to be recognized by seers of all times are the spirits of form. These beings, belonging to the evolution of the Lords of Saturn, are in charge of maintaining the structure of the physical body and its coherence with the spiritual archetype of the individual. They are the ones who prevent the form from collapsing, the organs from losing their placement, and the body from disintegrating into chaos. They act silently from the densest ethers, adjusting tissues, correcting subtle alignments, and protecting the integrity of the physical architecture. When the disciple lives in harmony, these spirits operate without interference. But if man becomes unbalanced through violent emotions, excesses, or self-destructive thoughts, these entities must compensate for his errors as far as the law of karma allows. Every thought of hate or despair produces an etheric disorder, and they, with infinite patience, try to restore the original design, although many times the soul denies them cooperation. They are the first invisible workers the body loses when man strays from his soul. Even more subtle and closer to the living soul are the devas of the body, small, luminous intelligences that act as guardians of organs and specific functions. There are devas of the heart, liver, kidneys, nervous system, and even of the facial glands. They do not possess individuality as man does, but their consciousness is vibratory, and their devotion is perfect. They serve the human body as if serving a temple, and their labor consists of keeping alive the harmony between the parts and the whole. These devas work with the vital body, especially with the luminous ether, and their activity is magnified when man lives in purity, in music, and in gratitude. They feed on elevated vibrations, and when they receive them, they produce such a subtle resonance in the body that aging stops and healing accelerates. However, when man insults his body, overfeeds it, neglects it, or turns it into an instrument of disharmonious desire, these devas withdraw or remain inactive, waiting for the consciousness to awaken. Above them there are the angels who guard the blood, beings of a higher hierarchy who not only observe the flow of life, but maintain the soul's vibration within the bloodstream. Blood is not only a carrier of oxygen or nutrients, it is the internal music of the soul, the mirror of the vibratory state of the being, and the channel through which destiny is imprinted. These angels, belonging to the evolution of the solar archangels, ensure that the blood retains its original tone, its light and its rhythm according to the Spirit's design. Every deep emotion, every sincere prayer, every gesture of forgiveness or sacrifice immediately alters the blood, elevating it or disturbing it, and these angels, in communion with the planetary hierarchy, intervene to guide these modifications towards a higher balance. They are also the ones who, in moments of illness or crisis, infuse impulses of renewal into the marrow and vital organs, accelerating healing if the soul's will allows it. The disciple who wishes to rejuvenate his body must learn not only to nourish himself with purity, to breathe in rhythm, to sleep with the planets, and to speak with truth, but also to honor these invisible friends, the silent builders who wait in every cell for the soul's call to operate in fullness. They do not require sacrifices or ostentatious prayers, only vibration, presence, and respect. Thank them with your silence, with your kind gesture, with your harmonious breathing. Thank them with each well-chosen meal, with each well-directed emotion, with each elevated thought, and they will respond with their invisible service, reorganizing your etheric body, closing your vital leaks, restoring your organs, and stopping the advance of time where the soul has once again taken the helm. For we are not alone, we never have been, and when the soul awakens to this truth, regeneration begins, not as magic, but as the natural response of the body to the restored cosmic order. And so we approach the threshold where the body's youth becomes a reflection of the soul's harmony, and human life ceases to be a struggle to become cooperation with the subtle worlds. In the next chapter, it will be revealed how this harmony is completed with the art of relating without chains, in invisible relationships that nourish and do not exhaust, that sustain and do not drain, love as nourishment, not as wear and tear. Chapter 12, The Solar Path. Youth as a State of the Soul. How to live lightly without manipulation. The sacred game as the law of the eternal present. Youth is not a season of the body, nor a cycle of the biological calendar. It is a vibrational state of the soul, a way of being in the world where lightness is not confused with shallowness, nor laughter with frivolity. There are children who have aged in their thoughts and old people whose walk reveals a freshness that no calendar can capture. This apparent contradiction leads us to a great truth. The soul is young when it has not departed from the sun. This chapter is not about recipes to prolong days, but about how each day can be lived without weight, without the invisible wear that comes from the solemnity of the ego, from excessive worry, from unconscious repetition. For the body does not age so much because of its years, but because of the absence of the inner play of joy without reason, of the conscious lightness that comes from being in tune with the One. The solar life is a life that radiates from within. It is not about moving in easy laughter, nor about denying pain or death, but about living with such presence, with such luminous detachment, that every act, no matter how simple, becomes a celebration. When the soul has learned to move like the stars, without hurry, without burden, without possession, then the flesh stops aching from time, because the body responds to the attitude with which the soul inhabits it. True lightness is not maturity without burden. The initiate learns to detach from the gravity of the world without ceasing to serve it. He smiles not for ignorance, but because he knows too much to sink into despair. He lives like the bird that sings in the morning, not to forget the night, but because he knows that the sun is stronger than the shadow. This state of the soul is also an art. It is not achieved with good wishes, but through deep cleansing, eliminating the unnecessary weights that the soul has accumulated by identifying with the transient. The weight of resentment, constant judgment, rigid morality without love, competition disguised as virtue. These all form an invisible crust that the body manifests as fatigue, stiffness, and a stiff gesture. And it can only be dissolved by the solar consciousness, an internal presence that lives in the present, not from ignorance, but from obedience to the eternal rhythm. The solar soul does not linger on yesterday. It does not calculate tomorrow with anxiety. It offers itself to the moment as if it were the first and the last, and from that surrender, lightness is born. The disciple who has reached this harmony is perceived by others as someone who rejuvenates without explanation, who smiles without an obvious reason, who acts effectively without effort. But there is no mystery. He has simply released the heavy ego and allowed the solar self to act without interference. This leads us to a profound key, the sacred game, not the game of the child who is unaware of the consequences, but the game of the sage who has transcended them. To live as a game is not to escape. It is to participate with joy, with inner freedom, with deep detachment, knowing that everything that happens is part of a dance whose choreographer is the spirit. In this game, there are no victims or winners, but moments that follow one another like notes in a perfect melody. The youth of the soul is sustained when the ability to play with what occurs has not been lost, when one can laugh at oneself without losing the center, when one can contemplate life with wonder, even in the midst of pain, when one continues to serve when others have sat down, and when one withdraws in silence when the work is done, like the sun that sets without applause, knowing it will return without fail the next day. The solar path is, therefore, the art of living without weight, without that implying emptiness. It is the lightness that arises from obedience to the higher law of abandoning the lower self, from trust in the light that dwells in all things. Those who enter this path do not need to memorize rules nor follow mechanical disciplines. Their very vibration orders their body, rejuvenates their blood, and turns every step into an affirmation of eternal life. And so, without imposition or artifice, the disciple becomes young, not through the generation of time, but because he has entered the eternal present, that sacred moment where the soul lives without shadow, where the body does not wear out, where the now is a temple and an altar. Those who have reached this state have understood that true youth is not bought, forced, or imitated. It is remembered because it has always been there beneath the layers of the false self, waiting for the sun of the spirit to awaken it. And so we approach the end of this work, where everything said will intertwine in the revelation of the sacred rhythm that unites form and essence, time and eternity, ether and soul, the inner elixia.